Hello and welcome to this week edition of Victor Alonge on Real Estate, your weekly real estate show that comes to you every Wednesday of the week. My name is Victor Alonge, your anchor, and you're welcome to this edition. I will be back after this short break with details of what we have for you. Please don't go away. Welcome back. It's still Victor Alonge on Real Estate, your weekly real estate show. I remain your anchor, Victor Alonge. This week we'll be looking at two issues thrown into the sector by the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, regarding abandoned properties. You know, how we can actually bring them back into the housing sector to look after the housing shortage, and also the issue of tenants paying monthly instead of the current annual. So let's start with the issue of monthly rent payment. Very lovely idea, very progressive. As a matter of fact, in most developed countries, where real estate actually play a vital role in the economy, rents are paid quarterly, even monthly, and it hasn't got any problem, any negative effect on the economy. But the truth of the matter is, we got to compare like with like, and we got to understand the economic structure of those economies to be able to understand why monthly rent is actually working in those environments. Rent payment, it's a form of return on investment for those who chose to actually invest in property. Property is an investment class, just as we have shares, we have bonds, and other investment opportunities. So for investors that chose to actually go into real estate investment, their return is actually in the form of rent. And the truth of the matter is, for an investment to be attractive, you've got to look at the return, not just the return, you look at the regularity of that return, and the point actually is in real estate, the regularity of return, that rent, is dependent on so many things that is anchored on the economy. A good example is employment. If you have tenants who haven't got security of employment, you get a tenant in today and in another 2 months he's laid off, then where will he get the rent to pay? And the truth of the matter also is that an investor definitely will go to banks, to take loans, to be able to develop, to leverage, whatever capital he's got. And the banks will look at, what we call the business plan, the development or investment cash flow. And on the basis of that, they will advance, loans. And these loans are repayable. And the truth of the matter is, in bank loan, you don't have Sundays or Saturdays. There is no forgiveness of debt. The truth also is, when repayment is due, you've got to pay it. And when you have a tenant who is unable to pay, maybe because of being laid off from where he's working or because of disability or whatever, then it affects the structure. And, to now say that we should forget about all those and then, start working on monthly rent payment, I think it's not going to work. But what the minister has said is actually very, very important, and it should actually spur professionals in the industry, the policymakers, and also the developers into action. We need to come together and see how we can make it work. But as it is now, it is not workable. If government sort of makes it some form of force, to force investors to do all this, what it will mean is that a lot of investors will come out of real estate and move into other sectors. And it is not going to help. It will actually be counterproductive. So monthly rent payment, I don't think it's an idea we should dismiss, but it is not an idea that we should embrace immediately now. But it is an idea that we should actually sit down, all the parties involved, all the stakeholders, to work out how it can actually work, and then let the government know their responsibilities. If you want it to work, this and this are what we need to do in terms of stabilizing the economy, in terms of providing employment stability for workers, all sort of things like that. So those are the things we need to actually look at. So it's not a bad idea. I think this is highlight, of what we think, is the situation with monthly rent payment. Let's take a short break now, and I'll be back. Please don't go away. Welcome back. It's still Victor Alongi on Real Estate. Now let us look at the issue of empty properties and the implication for homelessness or housing shortage. The point actually is it is not an ideal situation to have empty properties all over and still have people who cannot, have roof over their heads or whatever. But this is capitalism. We're not in a socialist economy where government controls everything. The owners of these empty properties have elected to actually, invest in those properties. And unfortunately, in a system of democracy, in a system where human rights is actually respected, the right to property of individuals will have to be respected. It's just like somebody, who bought shares in one of the multinational companies and decided just to keep it, not to even bother to go and collect the dividend for many, many, many years. The point is, when dividends are paid and the investors collect dividend, they spend it in the economy, and it actually, lead to, improvement in the economy. But the point is, if somebody chose not to actually collect that dividend and spend it, you cannot force them. And the other thing is that when somebody, buys shares, you cannot force him to sell. He can decide. We have people who bought shares 50 years ago, 20 years ago. They still hang on to it. So I don't see how government can actually force property owners, to, whether by law or anything, that you cannot have empty properties. If your property is empty, you must rent it out. Otherwise, government will take over that property. It's not going to work. But what have the advanced countries where, this system works, what have they done? What they have done is actually to look at, a system of taxing empty properties so that it makes it less attractive for people to just keep properties empty. So the system of taxation will have to be looked at, and that is why, professionals and other stakeholders will have to come together with government to work this out. It's not healthy. It's not ideal for us to have our properties, lying empty and so on. But also what you need to understand is the vast majority of these properties that are empty are in prime areas. These are not areas that people that are actually, not, having, access to housing are looking at. You have a lot of empty properties in prime areas like Maitama in Abuja, Banana Island, Victoria Island, Obuse, and so on. These are not areas where low earners in terms of wages are looking to rent, because even their annual salary will not be enough to even pay for a week rent there. So, but again, we need to look at our system. Maybe our system is actually encouraging people to just keep properties empty for as long as they want. So we need to look at that and find a way to discourage it to the benefit of not just the economy, but also for the citizen. So those are the things we will discuss this week. I want to have your feedback, your comments, your opinions on some of the things we've discussed, so that we can have a robust, discussion and understanding on this program. It is your program, and I hope you will continue to participate. Please stay with me. I'll be back after this message. Please don't go away. Welcome back. It's still Victor Alonge on Real Estate. I remain your uncle, Victor Alonge. I want to thank you for being part of this program this week. I hope you've had a great time with us. Please continue to send us your views, your comments. Our address is displayed at the end of this program. Until I come your way next week, please continue to keep safe. Goodbye.